We have a real treat for you today at Raw TV. One of the things that Naraya and I have been really excited about since the launching of the platform was the opportunity to be able to welcome not only reputable, but highly esteemed analysts and teachers in the human design community. And Dharmen and Leela are absolutely two of the most reputable and esteemed analysts and teachers in the community. So I'd like to really welcome you warmly today. And for those of you who don't know this incredible duo, Dharmen and Leela have been teaching human design courses since 2008 at Ra's request as part of the IHDS faculty. They also offer original human design classes and workshops that emphasize observation and experimentation, and they have authored 3 ebooks on human design.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about relating with sacral power.
She's going to talk a little.
But I'm going to put you on the spot here because, this is one of the things that we notice not only in our own relationship, but in working with families and parents and people engaged in their design, this dilemma of the generators of the world, of which I'm one, and all of the, let's say, open sacral beings, the projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, how do we coexist? How do we relate to one another and deal with this dilemma of the sacral power that runs our world? And Dharmen, would you like to talk a little bit about being a reflector in this sacral world?
It's very tiring. This woman never stops. I mean, she's 24/7 every single moment, every single day. And I live with this buzz, and that's how it feels over here.
So for me, the experience of living with an open sacral being that is also a reflector, the real hardest part that actually human design helped me come to a realization of is that our auras operate very differently. We can say the type is different, generator's a different type than a reflector. But it's the way the aura feels that before human design, I thought there was something wrong. It's like he's a reflector. His aura can be open and sampling, or he can be very closed off. And for me, my aura is open all the time. I can't keep anything out, and it's the dilemma, if you will, of the fish in water that can't recognize water. Because we live in this generator world, there's this expectation that everybody's aura is open and enveloping, and that's not the case. So when Dharmen would go into his reflector digestion, if you will, of closing his aura, I thought something was wrong. My mind would immediately interpret it as like, why is he closed off from me? Why isn't he available when he's supposed to be available? It's like, what's happened here? And living with that kind of movement between being open and available or being not available at all. And, sometimes I can, I laughingly say, I could bring a marching band through the living room and he wouldn't notice because he's so engaged in this interior process that what's going on out here doesn't matter at all. And that's very different than the generator experience that is constantly taking things in because we can't keep anything out. Dharmen and I, today actually, is 39 years that we have been doing this relationship thing together.
Torturing each other with love.
But also, as he, like Dharmen was saying, you know, for him to be that person in the room, you know, whatever it is that I'm going through, whatever it is that I'm processing, whatever it is that's taken place, he's there for it, you know, that. And just the same way, even if his aura is closed and he's deep inside his interior process, I'm still the person in the room, you know, that is available to support that growth, whatever that is. And we were in like that 13 years moment in our relationship. And there was some serious question as to whether we were going to continue or not. We had been through quite a bit in those 13 years when we met human design. So we have 13 years of relating before human design, and then 26 years now of relating in our experiments with human design. And when we met Ra, you know, he did each of our personal readings, and then he did a partnership reading for the both of us on the same day. And we went home, moved into separate bedrooms, and began our experiments. I mean, in those days, there was no Raw TV. There was no Living Your Design program. There were some analysts, but the computer program that created charts had just come out. I mean, it was, you know, it was a very different experience. But on the positive side, when we began our journey with human design, there was only the experiment. There was not, I mean, you know, Rob would teach a few times a year, you know, that was it. There were, you know, a few cassettes. There weren't a lot of resources. Nowadays, there are so many resources. People can spend years involved in human design and never get into the experiment. And that is, you know, there's many ways to live this life, but the benefits of human design are always in the experiment itself, in the process of self-discovery. And as you can see with the two of our charts, there's some big differences here. I only have two open centers. You know, I'm split, I'm triple split. So that makes me really slow processor. Darmin's
Makes me crazy. Well, it used to. I mean, I don't pay any attention to it now.
All right. Well, this is my observation of an open sacral being. That the mind will interpret the lack of energy as being a problem. That the mind then tries to generate by mentally pushing you to do things. It thinks something is wrong with you, urging you to change. Or the people in your life who are generators are urging you to be different than who you really are. Right? Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All of that pressure from sacral beings, this creates that sense of not being enough, not being good enough. And that mental decisions then are often influenced by not knowing when enough is enough. And deeper than that you're enough. You know, there's this fear that because open sacral beings don't have the energy to keep up with the generator pace, that they're not enough. And, you know, we can't judge who we are by the sacral. There's no awareness in the sacral, you know? And I think this is a big one for a lot of open sacral beings, that they can have a hard time recognizing when they've been around that sacral buzz for too long. And then, you know, this is, I guess, not necessarily a problem, but it is something that I found very interesting, is that open sacral beings are often projected upon as being sexy. the Brad Pitts, the George Clooney's, they're all projectors, the open sacral being. There's something very sexy about a sacral energy that can have this kind of sexual projection taking place. And the joke of that is that if you're having sex with an open sacral being, you're having sex with yourself. If you're a generator, you're running on the generator's energy, not the open sacral's energy. So after all, this knowledge is about what it means to be able to embrace being a passenger consciousness, not based on a belief system, but to literally recognize the nature of being a passenger consciousness by simply being able to operate correctly mechanically. The revelation of human design is its mechanics, and the mechanics are the gift. This is from Ra in Rave History 1.
Mm-hmm. So I have this quote on my bulletin board from Ra, where he said, "It is exceedingly difficult to get somebody with mental definition to give up on their mind running their life." And if we can actually go back and look at your design, great. Mm-hmm. Something that really stands out to me is that not only your head to ajna, but also ajna to throat is very subjective, because they're collective abstract channels. And so you were speaking about generators doing and kind of just what the mind thinks that one should do. And so I'm curious, do you have any wisdom to share about your own deconditioning process when it comes to how the mind maybe used to be very subjectively judging?
So the mind, my mind is always kind of looking backwards and having ideas, and Ross said, you're one of the true seekers. I've got the 56 and the 6th line of the searcher. She's always looking. And, the dilemma of the conditioned mind, they're all conditioned, I'm sorry to say, that when the mind is speaking inside my head, and this is true for all of us, if there are words going on inside my head, they're conditioning. If someone asks me, like Melanie's asking me, and I've responded, and I've, over time agreed to be here, and all of that, then what comes out is not for me. It's outer authority. It's for Melanie. It's for those that are listening. And I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no idea. This thing that rehearses, reviews, reevaluates, projects into the future, tells me about myself. What it's ran on for years and years is these 2 open centers. And so most of my conditioning revolved around, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what my career is going to be. I don't know where should I live? Where am I going to be? How am I going to do it? And this terror that it wasn't going to be enough, that I was going to end up a bag lady on the street. I mean, totally rational, but the fear was planted in early by my mother. She told me I was going to, if something happened to her and she died, I had to take care of my dad so that he didn't end up on Skid Row as a drunk. And at 8, I'm like, oh, you can end up living on the street. Okay. So I have to do everything in my power, right? That sacral power, to make sure that I don't end up a bag lady on the street. And I don't know what direction to go in, how to do it, what I need to do in order to do that. I mean, I wrote journal after journal after journal. And it took me 3 years of writing in journals when I began my experiment to really see that, to see that story about where am I going? How am I going to get there? What am I going to be doing? All of that. And then it took another 3 years. I mean, it was really 6 years into the experiment before my body collapsed from all of the pressure I put myself under in order to work so hard that my body couldn't do it any longer. I mean, really, this was the stick that kept me going. Was if I don't keep going, I'm going to end up, and life's going to be terrible, you know? So it took a lot to get to the clarity of that. And really the tool is, you know, my mind says, my mind thinks, and writing it out.
Is there a difference between a sacral defined by many channels or a sacral just one? And they say this is perhaps a silly question, but they're talking about in terms of energy.
Well, again, we have to remember what the sacral really is. It's this vibrating drum. So if we think of it like a drum, if there's more than one activation or more than one defined channel, that drum might have different beats to it, yeah? Has slightly different, processing, but it's a drum is still a drum, whether it has a single note or multiple.
See, human design is an exploratory process. You get the indicators, but you have to begin to recognize how those indicators, how you experience them. Now, somebody can say, okay, so this is that, and it's that. But every single person on the planet is going to experience that very same thing differently. Human design is about helping you to recognize you experiencing being alive.
So one of the things to notice about the sacral is that it can connect to the throat, it connect to the G, it connect to the splenic center, connect to the root, it can connect to the solar plexus. But it cannot connect directly to the heart center, to the ego, nor to the head and ajna. So tells us a lot about this cabal between the head and the ajna and the ego, for what the mind uses for its muscle. Yeah. But each one of those connections for the sacral is going to add a slightly different flavor. And like Dharmen says, it's up to the individual to find what that flavor is for them. But only the sacral or the solar plexus is the authority. Yeah. So regardless of whether the spleen or the root or the G or the throat are connected, they're still sacral authority beings if the solar plexus is open.